Hi, Shane. Thanks for being with us today and taking the time to chat. Looking forward to our discussion.
Thanks, Claire. How are you?
Doing well. Would love for you to start off by just quickly introducing yourself. You are a new face to Netrush, and of course, you've gotten to know a lot of brands in our network and a lot of just the broader Netrush community. But maybe you're still new to some people. So take a minute or two, if you don't mind, to just share who you are and where you're coming from.
Yeah, thank you. What a great opportunity to say hello. My name is Shane Atchison. I'm CEO of Netrush. I joined in February. I've been on the board of Netrush for 4+ years. So I certainly have been a supporter, a fan, serving behind the scenes to the leadership team, and getting to the space was too good to resist. I go back actually to the beginning of the web. I went to school at the University of Washington, 1991, and the browser came out during that time, and I started a digital agency before I graduated university, back when we called it Web 1, or now that we call it Web 1.0, doing some of the early work with the browser wars, content with movie and TV series, and then over time evolved my business into a performance business where we looked at data and used data to inform creative user experience, and really try to find the blend of the agendas between what a human is looking for, what as a brand is trying to accomplish, and building great, beautiful, human interactions, customer experience. I did write a couple books on using data to be a more effective marketer. And I really wrote that book for marketers to use data to support a hypothesis, to test and learn, to take risk, for creatives to know what was working and what wasn't, so they can improve the experience. And I just really had a great ride on that. I did eventually go into a larger digital agency where I was global CEO of an agency called Possible, where we had offices all over the world, about 2,700 people, and did deep e-commerce, direct-to-consumer e-commerce in the early 2000s, and really had just a joy in bringing commerce and content and humans together. And then over the last 3-4 years, I've been doing the largest merger of the largest ad agency in North America, Wunderman Thompson, where we combined the digital agency, J. Walter Thompson, the first ad agency in the history of advertising, and Wunderman, which is the father of direct marketing, loyalty marketing, database marketing, direct marketing. So that combination of creative, of experience, of data, of reaching out to audiences has always been core to who I am. I did start the WPP Center of Excellence on Amazon 9 years ago. I live in Seattle, so I've got deep ties to the Amazon ecosystem, and certainly understood that core. The reason I joined Netrush is I wanted to get closer to the maker of a product, a brand, and the people behind the brands, right? The actual inventors, and get their insights into why are they building a product, what human need are they serving, and then get that product in knowledge and actually the product itself into the hands of consumers. Our mission at Netrush is simply build a better life for people through knowledge and consumption of products they put in their body to be healthier, and how they use their body as far as activities to be healthier. And mind and body certainly tie together. So that mission for us to be able to create content and product is critical. I see my background in kind of all these forms of data, customer experience, creative technology, combining with both marketplace and direct-to-consumer commerce. What more interesting can you be in? And as time rolls on, this word we use a lot, NFTs, or phrase we use, NFTs, a lot. The combination of physical and digital products is also something that I'm particularly focused on, and we'll see more evolution on that here at Netrush.
Awesome, thank you. Well, we are so pleased to have you here at Netrush. I joined maybe just a week after you, so I'm new myself, and I can relate to just wanting to get a little bit closer to the brands, working directly with them, and a really cool portfolio of brands, health and wellness and sports and outdoors. Totally agree with you. Just helping humans live better and healthier lives. It doesn't get much better than that. You have such a wide range of experience. Advertising and the agency world is obviously a big piece of that, coupled with D2C, coupled with e-commerce. And it speaks to, this idea that those two worlds of advertising and commerce have just continued to collide. So as you founded that Center of Excellence for Amazon, I think you said 9 years ago, you were one of the pioneers of understanding that link between, that ad agency world and commerce, and starting to establish some best practices, some community around it. Maybe talk through from your perspective what that evolution has been. What did it look like 9 years ago? And how has that evolved now where, I think advertising, it's one of the very key elements of a successful e-commerce business. And brands are still trying to figure that out as they didn't have to think like advertisers. Maybe the sales lead that is leading the e-commerce account didn't have to think advertising 10 years ago, but they certainly do now. And it's a big implication for teams, for investments and whatnot. So would love to just kind of sit in your shoes for a little bit to hear kind of how that evolution has happened over the last 10 years or so.
Yeah, it's been fascinating. I would say the first thing that comes to mind is, back 10 years ago, even 20 years ago, there were a lot of steps to take to inform or make aware, inform, and drive opportunity for humans to consider a product and then a purchase. You might see a TV ad, you might see a print ad, you might see a billboard, you might see a banner ad, or a paid search ad, and then you have to kind of go from step to step to step, and that really is friction. And I think that what we've seen in the last 10 years is that friction has really shortened, and lessened over time, where you can see somebody with a product, you can hear them talk about it, and you can click to buy all in a 3-second TikTok, or all in an Instagram animation, and you go, that's so different. I also think the 20 years ago, we talked a lot about one-to-one marketing and permission-based marketing and word-of-mouth marketing, lots of marketing jargon. And that assumed that there would be a relationship directly between a brand and consumer. In most industries, there's another entity involved, whether it be a distributor, whether it be a retailer, whether that be some other form of transacting, and so the understanding of the customer is still fairly opaque on many manufacturers' perspective. If you have a product that is an accessory for a vehicle, and it fits certain vehicles, and you don't know that your customer is buying a new vehicle, you may not miss an opportunity to promote that accessory for that vehicle if they're in a buying cycle. And so understanding the whole human, what their motivations are, what are they trying to learn and consider, and then having a direct relationship not only with humans that are considering your product and buying your product, but then activating them to be marketers, whether that be through reviews, whether that be telling a friend, whether that be subscribe and stay loyal, giving incentives for retention, all those techniques that we learned about in Marketing 101. In some ways, we get really excited about the next shiny object, and usually it's a new social platform or a new mobile idea, and the fundamentals of what is your goal, how does that translate to a key performance indicator, what's the monetization of that, is there a performer behind your hypothesis, are you doing test and learns, are you building beautiful and smart and compelling customer experiences that are of value to the customer. In some ways we get almost there, and then we get distracted by TikTok, or get distracted by Meta, or get distracted by social commerce. And so, I spent a lot of time in many ways going back to the basics and making sure there's a through line of, the business objective to the experience and the transaction at the end of the day.
I also think one of the distractions that's in that world today is just how expensive it's gotten. And I think, your take and the Netrush take on, hey, focus on developing that relationship with that human, providing an amazing UX, driving retention, helping them to become marketers of the brand, that also helps it become less expensive, right? Can you talk about that a little bit, even just the efficiencies of it that can come from kind of focusing on that human a little bit more?
Yeah. I mean, I think first, defining your customer, right, and that those attributes of the customer, both quantitative and qualitative, and understanding who are your best customers, what are their behaviors, right? Do they come in and buy a 30 count, of your product to try it, right? Almost trial. But if you have a 120 count product, is that your call to action to have a longer term relationship, to have a more efficient relationship with the cost dynamics of a larger count of product in a similar package you might ship. So understanding your customers is really critical. Having a relationship with them, so it can be as simple as an email opt-in, a mobile phone number opt-in, a follow in social, an address, good old-fashioned address. But you have to make sure that value exchange is there, that there's something in it for the consumer at all times. I usually start there to say what's in it for the consumer, and then figure out what's in it for the brand. And then you have to move those consumers to different thoughts, different ideas, different actions. And so having an next best action that's based in math to say, okay, if somebody has bought one product, when might they want a refill on that, or what's the cross sell? Sampling, I think, is good old fashioned technique that we've seen. I certainly see it at retail now. At the pet food store, I went yesterday, and I bought some dog food and a chewy toy from a little dog, and all of a sudden the person at the counter, she handed me a bag full of frozen treats, hard goods, things I didn't even know what it was, and I thought, I got more for free than I bought. And my kid said, "Why do they do that?" And I said, "It's cheaper to sample with a customer that clearly is coming into a bespoke pet food store, because the customer lifetime value is going to be higher, is the probability there. And to give that to somebody who's already has a pet, already is interested, is really critical. I'll never forget working for an auto manufacturer back when Twitter first started, and we put a hashtag on a Super Bowl spot, and everybody got really excited about the number of views, and we actually had a call to action go to Facebook, so the number of likes, and we had millions and millions of likes, and I had this pit in my stomach where I thought, I wonder who's liking this brand, and I wonder if they fit our audience. And I had a couple of data scientists dig in and said, of the people who are liking, what audience segments are they in? Over 90% of the likes were teenage boys that had no business buying a $50,000 vehicle, right? But they could influence their parents. They could be the next buyers in the future. So you don't discard that traffic, but you have to segment that to say, of the people who like or opt in to my brand, how many fit my target audience? How many are maybe influencers to my audience or later audiences? So really getting, as discreet and really as focused on your business model with your data, with your experiences, is critical.
Let's talk about internally at branded manufacturer organizations. How ready are they for some of this stuff? I think I've heard you say before, as you're talking about getting to know that consumer, looking at the data based on audience segments, knowing if the consumer bought a new car. I think I've heard you say, like, most brands don't even have that capability, or maybe many brands don't have that capability, that system, that CRM in place. We could maybe start there, but do you think most brands are there and kind of ready to take this on, or do you think internally there's some, systems, resources, infrastructure that needs to be put in place first?
Yeah, I think we're in another transition. I think the maturity curve of the sophistication of marketers on the manufacturer side varies. And I think the role of retailers and other e-tailers is a dynamic that I would encourage every manufacturer to not lean on the binary conversation. Do we go direct, or do we work through a multi-channel strategy? I think there's a role for the ecosystem and the design that's really critical. If you think about, I love skiing, and I went into a ski shop where, I bought a couple pairs of skis that were, a new version of the 3 years prior version of the skis that I loved. So I knew what I wanted. I knew the size that I wanted. My son did too. So I walked in my local ski shop with 2 skis I bought off of a online retailer, and the store owner, said, "Please don't come in here because I don't sell those skis. I'm not going to mount them for you." And I said, "Hello, my name's Shane. Can we talk?" And I said, "Would you, learn a little bit more about me before you kick me out of your store?" And I said, "Are there bindings on my skis?" And he said, "No." I said, "Do you sell bindings?" And he said, "Yes." I said, "Do you install bindings on skis?" He said, "Yes." I said, "I don't know how to do that." I said, "I need some, some wax. I need some other accessories." And all of a sudden it went from, this really, channel conflict right in the moment of me buying online, walking into a retailer, to, what is going to be a pivot in that space where a local ski shop in a mountain is probably going to be more about local, content, fast moving goods where you need an accessory at the last minute, service. And, I geeked out with him. I said, "Let's talk about that amount of profit you generated off of me versus, in this, whole experience of the mounting the skis and waxed and accessories." And it was 3x what it would have been on just buying a pair of skis and not doing anything else with it. So having, a design system to say, okay, what is the role for each player is key. I think the understanding of the customer is also critical. So customer data platforms, CDPs, that term gets thrown out around a lot. I've seen lots of big CRM programs get put in place that aren't used. And so I think that, the crawl, walk, around is really important. So to say, okay, what use case is going to be of value to a consumer and to your brand, to gather customer data, to ask for precious, information from a human. What do they get, right? What is the value exchange there? To say, if I give you this information, is that going to give me, a cue to come into the line and skip the line? Is it going to give me, like Starbucks mobile order and pay? Is it going to give me a discount? Is it going to give me knowledge? Is it going to give me access to product earlier? Is going to give me a better service experience? So you got to understand kind of what that core value proposition is, then create data, based off of that, rather than, what I see too often is brands kind of jump right in, gather as much customer data as they can, and then they don't take action because they didn't actually have a plan for the use of data and the value of the data.
So helpful. I love the ski story. The manager did not know who was walking into his store, obviously, and didn't know he was gonna have you walk out, a lesson later. But that's awesome, and that resonates with me. One of the first places my mind goes when I think about this approach is the need to be channel agnostic, right? And so when you break it down to the consumer, to the human, it's no longer just the Amazon team running their Amazon advertising spend in a silo. It's no longer the brick and mortar team saying, "Hey, Amazon, you're messing up my business," or "There's no place for D2C here." It's really breaking down those silos that I also think, in terms of this maturity curve, a lot of brands struggle there. And my background is working with a lot of big consumer goods brands. And we did a lot of work around, hey, what is the organizational implications for this new and dynamic world of e-commerce? And silos, I think, was one of the biggest things, and kind of this idea of not one channel versus the other, but kind of breaking it down so that you can serve the human in a holistic way. Along those lines, you rattled off so many good ideas of, hey, here's where you can provide value to the consumer for them to give you that email address in return, opt into the loyalty program in return, whatever it is. Of course, Netrush is doing a lot of work to kind of help brands figure out what are those ideas, what makes sense for this brand, and how do you put it into action. Outside from working with that external agency or partner, who in the organization do you find is typically doing that work? Like, is that the world of marketing? Is it, maybe in this maturity curve, there's a specific consumer team that's leading the charge here? Is it D2C? Hopefully that's not too tactical, but would just love to kind of get a little bit more tangible on who is best suited in the organization to do this work, given it is kind of channel agnostic?
Yeah. Well, I'll give you the fastest answer is the CEO. The CEO looking at your business strategy and your go-to-market strategy. It takes an entire organization and all the functions of the organization being aligned to maximize your opportunity. If you think about quote winning the algorithm on Amazon, you have to have velocity, you have to have price, you have to have availability, and you have to have reach, or you have to be in front of people at the right time, whether that's in SEO, paid search, display, affiliate content programs, offline to drive to a landing page. And so having that understanding of the consumer, having the lack of bias towards your org chart and where you sit functionally inside your company and trying to drive a behavior that might make you look good, and doing the bold things, doing what makes sense. I've talked to CEOs of Netrush brands that are, I'd say, leading CEOs who, I said, what are your moves as you come into your job? And they said, well, the first thing I did is I looked at anything that would be conflicting with giving our customers the best experience. And I said, what are examples of that? And they said, commission structures of our people, distribution relationships that are legacy that may drive inventory to one store in one little spot that does that might minimize our availability, infrastructure to be able to move product fast, our buying behaviors and having enough inventory available, the split between advertising and e-commerce. That's probably one of the biggest things I see as a gap, is an e-commerce team and an ad team. And in a typical publisher model, that can work, right? I create an ad, I put an ad on a TV station or put it on even a paid search result, without any understanding of supply chain. To win on Amazon, you have to have integration with supply chain at all times for the machine to work. And so your creatives have to understand supply chain. Your supply chain has to understand the user and customer experience. When they come together, it's beautiful. When they're apart, you're using an old model applied to a current reality, and you're going to lose. So quite often, we'll see brands that are built for Amazon that are outpacing the growth of a much larger brand in brand reputation, brand presence, brand history, because they're starting with Amazon first. Something I saw in the ad industry was a shift in 2021 where the RFP for a new ad agency of record was shifting to, we want the commerce team to lead it, not the ad team or the web team to lead it. And the premise, and I fundamentally believe this is exactly why I'm at Netrush, is that if you start where the most humans in the world are transacting, which is certainly the Amazon marketplace, and then you work outward to say, okay, how are we going to attract, get consideration and get behavioral change to move into a commerce relationship? Wouldn't you want to optimize for where the most people are transacting? And right now, most ad campaigns are a creative brief, maybe a business brief, a creative brief, a channel strategy, and then an idea. And then eventually we'll talk about what we do in the channels. And, and you might be talking about Amazon at the 6th or 7th step, 6 or 7 months later. That's not the right pace. It's not the right ad content format. It's not including supply chain. It's not, integrating with, all the different functions in the organization. So, I think a CEO is really core. The role of the brand runner is one we've coined, is really this, this key role that kind of sits at the intersection between content, product, supply chain, commercial, commercial P&L, and really can have this diverse background to be able to put it all together. And those unicorns of the brand runners, that's a community I know you spend a lot of time with, and at Netrush, that is our champion. That is, that's the group that we want to share best practices and make each other smarter. Provide samples of data and formats for writing cases for your CEO or for your board, your business plans. because I think that that brand runner community is going to continue to rise in the world. And I'd say community also, certainly as you look at Web3 and what's happening with blockchain and with Meta and NFTs. NFTs, are designed to have shared ownership, and so you think about the community dynamics of shared ownership. I think that's going to be really interesting when you start thinking about how do your best customers not only buying your product but having ownership, of a product, and then you turn them into your marketers, and they have an intrinsic incentive to be your marketer as well, which I couldn't be more excited about kind of where this is going.
I love it. Very well said. If you need a holistic strategy, that has to start from the top. And then in those really large organizations, oftentimes that brand runner is sitting underneath that CEO to bring it all together, right? These varying pieces of the business that maybe 20 years ago were okay living separately, and that just doesn't work today. And then love the idea of bringing in those customers more and more as we think about all the exciting things that we can look forward to into the future. Okay, Shane, so people are hopefully listening and saying, hey, let's get more customer centric. Let's get closer to these humans that are investing in my brand. Now, how do we do that? We covered a couple areas where there's likely room for improvement in a lot of brand organizations. So kind of the access to data, the organization of data, that was one of them. Just that holistic strategy. What does that mean for structure? What does that mean for breaking down silos? What does that mean for incentives? What does that mean for outdated partnerships that need to be revisited? Another thing that I think is true here is the ability to test and learn and kind of rapidly experiment within this world. I think that's also kind of a muscle that, again, for a large consumer goods company is maybe harder to develop than, and that's to your point earlier, maybe that's where you see kind of these smaller upstarts. They have some of these pieces, right? They're thinking holistically, they're thinking about the human first, they have that data-driven mentality, and they have the ability to test and learn really quickly. Maybe you can spend a couple minutes kind of sharing your thoughts there. Am I right? And that's kind of a muscle that still needs to be developed in a lot of brands, and maybe how can they kind of take some steps forward in that regard?
Yeah, I think test and learn is critical. I think using the scientific method to control your variable and isolate on what your hypothesis is and what variables you're going to manipulate to see what drives better performance. I think designing for it is the first step, and designing for it is within your budgets. What budget line item do you have for test and learn? That's one of the first questions I ask, and most of the time there's an awkward pause, and then they'll give me a kind of a half answer, which is, oh, it's embedded in an initiative. And I say, show me that initiative and show me where the test and learn budget is. I'll never forget working for an auto manufacturer back in the darker days of 2009, where all spend was very tight, and we're working through a digital budget for the year, and the client said to me, let's allocate 5% of our budget to test and learn. And I said, are you kidding me? You can barely afford the basics. And he said, I'll never get my basics right if I don't test and learn. So even when you're kind of on your back with as little budget and little time and flexibility as possible, I saw a leader in that case allocate to test and learn. Having that in the dynamic of an organization, in one of the books I wrote, we talked about the big dog syndrome, and the big dog syndrome is something that I still see often. When you're doing a creative presentation for an ad campaign or a homepage design or a landing page design, typically the creative team will come to the decision maker with 3 versions of the creative, A, B, and C. And they'll present the work, and then they'll usually provide a recommendation, and then whoever the big dog is, the most senior person, will pick the one that they want the best. And I remember just looking and being in these meetings year after year going, why is the big dog smarter than everybody else? How could that possibly be? I don't think I'm smarter than everybody else. Isn't this very subjective? And so one day I said, what if we pick the the two variants that we think are two versions of a campaign that we think are the best candidates, put them in market, do a 50-50 split of the traffic and see which one gets better conversions on our KPIs. And the magic thing we did is we said, every person, no matter your seniority or your role, pick the one you think is going to perform the best with a hypothesis of what percent increase on the KPIs versus the control it will have. And then every day we report out the results. We have a leaderboard of the work and who voted for that one. And we geeked out on it. And over 3 years, we did this almost every single initiative. The most junior people in the organization, both agency side and brand side, were correct more often than the big dog. And so, that depoliticizing of creative choices and offer choices to say, let's listen to the audience, let's see what the reaction is, let's take, in some ways, our own egos out of the equation, and let's learn. And quite often you go, yeah, we didn't put a call to action above the fold on a scroll, or we're using language that's super inwardly focused, or there's not a value to click on that button, or somebody abandoned something because it's too long to download. So just that whole organizational structure around test and learn is a design process. It's not something that happens by accident. You have to spend money, time. You have to create safety. Even having everybody vote, right, and doing that every time. We gave a Starbucks card to the person that that had the winning hypothesis, and you start to condition the team to say it's okay to take risk, but it's not okay not to listen to what's working, not to adapt to what's working. The other thing is velocity, and it's kind of the classic, getting to the first test, is probably 50% of the work. Getting the third test is probably 70%. But then doing a 50 test, is the last 10%, 20% of the effort. So getting organization to say, well, we're going to do tests, right? We're not going to just do one test and get the velocity up. And so quite often I'll say, let's do one test in 30 days, 3 tests in the next 30, 10 tests in the next 30. So over the course of 3 months, we're picking up our pace and we're getting more fluid with the speed at which we can do tests and learns.
I love it. That's where the importance of the CEO or the leader comes in as well, right? Not to say, hey, I'm the CEO, I have the final say, but from the top, you are giving permission to test and learn, to potentially fail. And I love your point, kind of the importance is testing and learning so that you can learn from it and generate some real data that you can rely on rather than just that subjectivity. Super helpful. Side note, can you shout out your couple books in case people are listening and want to check them out? I would love to check them out.
Yeah, I've got 2 books. One for a data analyst called Actionable Analytics, and that was published by Wiley. And then a second book called Does It Work? And that's for marketers to use better data to be more effective marketer. I think my mom bought all the copies of the book, so you might have to go onto eBay to buy her used books at a discount for sure.
We'll be checking it out. Sounds good. Very cool. We can round it out with anything else that you think we're missing. You talked about this maturity curve, and as you know, Netrush has developed this kind of more formal maturity model for modern commerce, and advertising and acquisition is a piece of that, which is what we've been talking about today. In the earliest stage, it's I'm not doing anything to drive conversion online in my business, or maybe, hey, I'm focusing my campaigns on consumers that are already ready to convert, right? And then all the way over to stage 4, this most mature stage is I'm focused on finding new customers that will be loyal customers, and I'm focused on retaining those loyal customers and really developing a one-to-one relationship with them. And I think that's where we spent a lot of the discussion today. In that vein, anything else that you would say we've missed in the conversation that brands might be missing? Just any kind of last pieces of wisdom on that topic would be awesome.
Yeah, I mean, one thing that comes to mind, Claire, is after somebody buys your product, what next? What next? Is there an offer? Is there a follow-up communication with more information, or and ask, did it work? Is there, would you like to share this with friends? Can we be better? Can you write us a review? I would always start, if you're an established brand, I would start there with your data strategy, with your customer engagement strategy. Is the customers that already are buying your product, what are you doing to listen to them, to activate them, to support them, to help them move to the next step? If they're buying your product, they're aware of your product and probably like your product a lot. Too often I see the answer to that question of what are you doing, to move an existing customer to a next best action. People just look at me with a blank face and say, let's talk about more customers. And I've seen too many opportunities, get almost to the finish line and then be missed. I'll give you an example. We had a brand that had a social influencer promote their product on Instagram. They had over $1 million of incremental sales in one day when this TikToker promoted the product to a new audience that really wasn't in their core audience segment. And they got this bump on sales, but they did nothing to understand who these people are and to drive them to a next action, whether that be a review, whether that be an opt-in for further communication, whether it be tell a friend, whether it be purchase more, something different with a sample. And I look at that and say, well, you had a hit, but you didn't extend that, right, to be a long-term relationship, and what a missed opportunity. So I would start there, almost at the bottom of the funnel, and then work your way up the funnel rather than spending a bunch of time chasing, strangers.
I love that you called that out. It's such a timely piece of advice as well. Again, where my mind goes is Prime Day coming up here in a couple months. It's the perfect example. Our team was just talking about this the other day, where very similar to that TikTok example, right? You get a huge influx of new customers. The metric is always, what was the sales lift on Prime Day? That's what the press releases will talk about. That's what brands are chasing is, hey, what's the lift that we get? And then the conversation's done. And really that's where the work should just begin. You have all of these customers, maybe some existing and loyal customers that are taking advantage of a good deal, but oftentimes these new customers coming in, and yeah, the real KPI should not be just more customers. It should be, hey, who is coming in, which ones of these make sense for my brand and don't, and then those ones that do make sense, how can I learn everything about them and continue that relationship with that next action, exactly to your point. So yeah, I love that. It's very important that you brought it up. And again, I think timely, because Prime Day is a really tangible opportunity for brands to kind of rethink how they're thinking about the customer, pre-purchase and post-purchase.
Yeah, I think people are thirsty. Notice what's happened during COVID on content consumption. I know with my friends and people that, now that I'm starting to meet people for once in 2 years, if you hear somebody start talking about content, right? A TV series, a streaming TV series, I always watch people pull out their phones and before the person's even told you about the content itself, you've got something open, ready to type it in on your list because you're so thirsty, so hungry for content that to wade through this morass of content overload. I think the same thing goes for any product where if you like the product, you do want to be asked about it. You do want to be able to tell somebody about it. And how can we make that an intimate experience, whether that be a story behind the brand, whether that be an offer, whether that be an exclusive, whether that be, hey, check this out. Here's a place to get a deal. And so thinking through, I call it the side-by-side conversation where, when you're in the wild, when two humans talking to each other, somebody's, excited about a product or interested in an activity, what is that dialogue and how can a brand assist in that?
That's another good reminder of think about yourself as a consumer, right? What do you enjoy? We always enjoy those experiences. We always enjoy feeling really special from the brands that we love. And so kind of a good recommendation for brands is put yourself in the shoes of that actual consumer, which we are. That's why this job is so fun. And think through what the best experience is and then kind of go replicate that experience for your brand. Awesome. Shane, this has been so fun and so insightful and enriching for me. I'm sure, the people listening will get a ton out of it as well. So thank you so much for chatting. Thanks for sharing your experiences and your perspectives with me and the broader NetRush network.
Yeah, thank you, Claire, and thank you everybody for being part of the community. We'd love to, partner. We'd love to talk more and share best practices with each other and learn more together. So thank you, and I hope to meet you all.
Absolutely. Yeah, we're just getting started, right? This is the very beginning of more on this topic and more just in general, sharing best practices, getting the community together, hearing from, from leaders in the space like yourself. So I echo Shane's thoughts. We're looking forward to doing this more and connecting with all of you guys more closely going forward. Thank you, Shane.
Thank you.